What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me here at my YouTube channel. This is where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about: movies, video games, comic books, and TV shows. And right now, with the release of Wonder Woman 1984, I wanted to give you guys my updated ranking of the DCEU. Now, maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, I put out a ranking of the DCEU, and it's been a year. You know, I've rewatched the movies, I've had time to think about the movies and rewatch them and think about them, and so the ranking may not be the same as it was a year ago because, again, I've rewatched these and I've spent more time with them. So why I think that in general the ranking is going to be pretty close. It may not be exact simply because it's been a year, I've changed, and how I perceive these movies has changed. So let's start with number 9. Number 9 is the worst movie in the DCEU. And it's the only movie that I really look at as a bad movie. And no, it's not Suicide Squad. Number 9 for me is Justice League. The more I watch Justice League, the more I don't like it. And that's just a hard reality that I had to face about Justice League. That the more I watched it, the more I didn't like it. It's just not a good movie. And it feels very hackneyed, very chopped up. It feels like two different visions. That's exactly what it feels like. It's two different visions. And one vision was a little more adult, Zack Snyder's vision. And the other vision was very much Disney-fied in Joss Whedon's vision, and they just didn't mesh well. And Justice League especially doesn't work when you're looking at it as a continuation of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. Tonally, they're entirely, completely different. So yeah, I don't like Justice League, and initially I did. Initially I liked it, but it was like I convinced myself that I liked it, right? Like, it was a movie I'd been waiting for since I was a kid. So when it came out, I was like, okay, I like this. And then the more time I spend with it, the more I realize I don't like it. So number 9 is Justice League. Number 8 is a movie that I think objectively is bad, but I have a lot of fun with it. It's has a lot of energy, has a lot of great character designs, a lot of good action. It's not good. It's not a good movie. And my number 8 is Suicide Squad. Great character designs. Thought they nailed Harley Quinn. Thought they nailed Deadshot. Excuse me. Captain Boomerang, Amanda Waller, Colonel Flag. You know, these are character designs that they absolutely nailed. They got them perfect. A lot of the characterizations they got perfect. Right? I thought Harley Quinn was great. I thought Deadshot was great. Even the, what's the word I'm looking for? The interconnectivity worked great. It referenced Batman versus Superman, right? It referenced the death of Superman. It referenced other things that were happening in the DCEU. In that sense, it got the interconnectivity right. Like, it's what we kind of want to see in DC movies, or at least what I want to see in DC movies, that they aren't doing that Marvel is connecting things in a very real, organic way. And they're just not doing that anymore. They completely abandoned that. But Suicide Squad did it, and I thought they did it well. Some of the character designs they didn't get so well. Jared Leto's Joker, which I'm not as big of a hater on Jared Leto's Joker as a lot of you are. I think he got a raw deal, and I would like to see him get more time to stretch his legs. But what they had in there was not good. So I have fun with Suicide Squad. It's a bad movie, but I have fun with it. And it's my number 8. All right, number 7. Number 7, it's funny enough, it's low on my list, but I think financially it's the most successful DCEU film, and that's Aquaman. Listen, I admire what they tried to do in Aquaman. I admire the high level of attention to detail and special effects. I admire the fact that they really went for it as far as building this big underwater world. And I thought that the Black Manta was a brilliantly conceived character. It felt like he just came off the comic book page and started walking around us. That's what Black Manta felt like. It felt great, looked great. I like the fact that they even had connections to Justice League, right? They mentioned Steppenwolf. They tried to connect that world, but it was just a little bit too silly for me, right? The point where they had the octopus drumming the drums, the point where they've got this, people riding on the back of sharks, extinct animals, etc. It all felt very silly. It felt very cartoonish, and it didn't really. I'm sitting here thinking, can I believe that this movie exists in the same world as Man of Steel? And the answer is no. I did not believe that this movie existed in the same world as Man of Steel. So for that reason, it just felt silly, and it just didn't really work for me. I admire a lot of what it tried to accomplish. I really do, but I just wasn't a big fan of it. So Aquaman's number 7. All right, number 6. Number 6 is the new one, Wonder Woman 1984. Listen, Wonder Woman 1984 has a lot of great stuff going for it. Had a lot of wonderful sequences, and in general, I liked this movie. I did. My review's on my YouTube channel right now, and it was a fairly positive review. I liked it. I also had a lot of problems with it. All right, especially in the villains, the way that the villains, especially Cheetah, were conceived. Didn't care for that. Didn't care for the MacGuffin, the Rock. I didn't care for the wishes, the loosey-goosey rules that they had. There's just I had a lot of problems with this movie. Had a great message. Definitely inspired hope. It inspired all the things that Patty Jenkins set out to accomplish with this movie. I feel like she probably accomplished them, because it definitely brought home this idea that Wonder Woman represents love, Wonder Woman represents hope, and mission accomplished. Just a lot of the rest of the movie just wasn't very good. So I'm a very mixed bag on Wonder Woman. I think there's more good in it than Wonder Woman 1984. I think there's more good in it than there is bad. But at the same time, there's enough bad in it where, yeah, while my review is probably more positive than negative, I'm still a mixed bag on it. So Wonder Woman 1984 is number 6. All right, number 5. Very similar to Wonder Woman 1984. A very mixed bag was Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, or Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, whichever title you want to go with. That's number 5 for me, and it edged out Wonder Woman because, number 1, I'm such a huge fan of the Harley Quinn character. Number 2, I'm such a huge fan of Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. And number 3, where Wonder Woman 1984 did not have a good antagonist or a well flushed out plot that was put in motion by the antagonist, I can at least say that Birds of Prey, while I had problems with the movie, it did have a great antagonist in Ewan McGregor's Black Mask, and his issues with our protagonist was well defined, and the motives were clear. They were a little silly, but they were clear. You understood the rules, you understood the boundaries, you understood what was happening. And Black Mask was well conceived. May not have been the Black Mask that we always kind of pictured when we read the comics, but Black Mask was still well conceived. It was a character where they established who he was and what his motivations were. And his motivations were believable. You know? Barbara Minerva, I didn't believe anything about that character in Wonder Woman 84. I didn't believe anything about it, except for the fact that she was awkward. I believe that. Nothing else. So, yeah, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey is my number 5. All right, my number 4. Number 4 is Shazam. Shazam is just a load of fun. It's just a load of fun. I don't understand why more people didn't give the movie a chance. Might have been the costuming, might have been the silly ad campaign. I don't know what it was, but it's a load of fun. Very, it's got those superhero moments that you want to see. It's got the superhero arc. It's got a villain that's menacing, but at the same time, Believable. Again, you understand where he's come from. He's evil, but you get it. You understand his motivations. And while the seven deadly sins might have been a little bit silly, and I would have probably rather seen them save the seven deadly sins for a Pandora movie or a Justice League Dark movie or something along those lines, it was still fun to see the seven deadly sins put onto screen. You know, these characters that if you've read the Justice League Dark or any of the supporting Justice League Dark characters like Pandora or the Question or Phantom Stranger or Swamp Thing or anything like that, you're familiar with the seven deadly sin characters. And I don't remember ever getting them in a Shazam comic. But to be fair, I haven't read a lot of Shazam. So let me know in the comments if the seven deadly sins have appeared regularly in Shazam comics, because I don't ever remember that happening. But I do remember them appearing in Phantom Stranger, Pandora, Justice League Dark, and those storylines. But it was just a fun, lighthearted, family-friendly superhero movie that took itself seriously enough where the stakes were high, had just enough connectivity where it was indeed part of the DCEU, and it had just enough lightheartedness where kids and family are going to get into it, but it's not going to exclude the hardcore comic book fans that want a great action adventure story. Shazam kind of had it all, and it kind of treaded that line between family movie and comic book movie very well. You know, some people described it as superhero version of Big, and I think that's apt. So that's number 4, Shazam. Number 3 is the first Wonder Woman. It's one of the strongest comic book movies I've seen in a long time. And it's number 3. So, you know, that tells you what I think about the first two. But still to this day, probably the most thrilling comic book sequence in any comic book movie I've ever seen, be it DCEU, be it Marvel, you know, whatever it might be, is the No Man's Land sequence. The No Man's Land sequence is like the gold standard for what a thrilling superhero moment could be. And that's, like I said, that's still the sequence that I look at as, can Marvel or DC or anybody else replicate that? Because that was it. And not just like, obviously it's not fan service, so it's not going to make you have butterflies in the way that Avengers Assemble might have or On Your Left might have. But as far as pure movie making and telling a narrative and getting us emotionally invested, inspiring us, and leaving us in that moment of awe where our jaws are just open and we're in awe at masterful filmmaking, No Man's Land is the best superhero sequence ever, in my opinion. So I really liked Wonder Woman, the first one. Liked it a lot more than Wonder Woman 1984. They're just two different levels. And I highly recommend it. And it's my number 3. Number 2 is Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. Now, I had to make sure that I specified the Ultimate Edition, because the Ultimate Edition is so much better than the theatrical cut. The Ultimate Edition gives so much backstory to Superman. We get so much more Superman, and understanding Superman and his motives and why he's doing what he's doing and what's happening to him in the background. So much more Superman, and so much more even of Lex Luthor's plot. So much more of it is fleshed out in the Ultimate Edition that it really leaves you understanding a lot more of what happened. They ended up cutting stuff out of the in the theatrical cut. They ended up cutting stuff out where you were just like, after you saw the Ultimate Edition, you was like, how'd they cut that out? It just doesn't make sense. Yeah, Batman vs. Superman is the top 2 in this are highly underrated. I think Batman vs. Superman is just flat out misunderstood. I think it's a misunderstood movie. I think that people expected it to be one thing, and it ended up being the other. So that left a lot of people not liking. And that's too bad, because when you come into a movie like this with preconceived notions, you're going to be let down. And I think a lot of people had preconceived notions about what they thought Batman vs. Superman was going to be. And when it wasn't that, when it wasn't Captain America Civil War, and it ended up being Batman vs. Superman, a story that really deconstructs the characters rather than tells a thrilling fantasy adventure, which is what Captain America Civil War was, and it's fine. I love Captain America Civil War. But it's a thrilling action adventure. And Batman vs. Superman is a little bit more of a let's deconstruct our superheroes and let's learn more about them. And that's fine. That's fine. But that's not what people expected, and it's not what they wanted. So I thought it did a good job of world building. The Justice League that this movie promised us, I can't wait to see in Zack Snyder's version of Justice League. And I really like Batman vs. Superman a lot. So it's my number 2. Number 1, however, is, in my opinion, one of the top 5 superhero movies of all time. I think it is a masterfully made comic book movie. One of the gold standards of the comic book genre, and that's Man of Steel. Why people don't understand Man of Steel, I don't get it. I don't get it. There's a lot, and I think more and more people are coming around. Remember when Man of Steel first came out, it was a lot more divisive than it is today. Today, a lot more people really love Man of Steel than don't. But it still has its detractors. And I've yet to talk to anybody who has adequately explained to me why they don't like Man of Steel, using the comic books as a source for why they don't like it. Every time, well, he killed Zod. All right, that's cool. He killed Zod in the comics too. He did. He killed Zod in the comics too. Superman doesn't kill anybody. Oh yeah, well, let's talk about Superman Doomed. Came out a few years ago. At one point, he was fighting Doomsday, and he actually split Doomsday in half. And I don't mean in half. I mean, he split him in half. He just ripped him down the middle. There are many scenarios in canon, in the comics, where Superman has killed. It's a fact. But what about all of the destruction that they caused in Metropolis? Seriously? Zod had set out at that point to destroy humanity. Superman was not getting Zod out of Metropolis. Didn't matter how hard he tried. He was not going to get Zod out of Metropolis or out of a metropolitan area. That's where Zod was going to be, because that's where people were, and that was where people were that he could kill. And by that point, he had decided that the rest of his life was going to be taking the people that Kal-El loves. Every one of them. And that means all of humanity. So I don't understand why people think, well, Superman could just grabbed him and flown somewhere. Okay, Zod's going to get free, and Zod's going to go back to a metropolitan area. The fight had to be handled. Superman had to handle it. He didn't have to worry. He shouldn't have had to worry about, all right, how am I going to get him to fight in a field now? I got to get him to a field. Nah, he had to handle the situation. Had to handle it. Because Zod was going to murder. And if he had taken Zod to a field, or if he had taken Zod to Antarctica, Zod was going to come right back. Just the reality of it. That's what Zod's mission was at that point. So Superman had to handle it as fast as he could. Let's see here. What were some of the other garbage arguments I heard? I heard a lot of garbage arguments about Man of Steel. How come people didn't like it? Superman was brooding. He wasn't the beacon of hope that he's supposed to be. I'm sorry, Richard Donner didn't direct this. All right. It is what it is. Zack Snyder chose to tell a story of Superman in his early days, trying to figure out who he is and why he's doing what he's doing. And I liked it. So, yeah, I love Man of Steel. I think it's one of the top 5 greatest comic book movies of all time. Really, the only issue I have in the movie is the depiction of Jonathan Kent, and even that, I get it. In real life, a father is going to look out for his son. He's not going to try to turn his son into some sort of messiah. He's going to look out for his son. He's going to make sure that his son has all the opportunities in the world, and that probably means making sure that his son appears to be normal. So I get it. I just wasn't necessarily down for that interpretation, because all the interpretations I've ever known of Jonathan Kent has been, you know, you're here for a reason. You know, you were sent here for a reason, and I get why they made the change. I just wasn't really a fan, but I love Man of Steel. Man of Steel is amazing, so good, and so underappreciated. It's probably one of the top underappreciated movies of all time, and I'm glad that it is becoming more and more appreciated as time goes on. So anyways, Man of Steel is my number one. That is my ranking of the DCEU. What is your favorite DCEU movie? Comment down below. Where does Wonder Woman 1984 fall in it for you? Make sure you let me know that as well. And guys, thank you so much for joining me right here at the OQ Review. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, and until next time, we'll see you later.